Well, I'm here with my great uncle and one of my very best friends in my whole life, Homer Neal Lewis. I never have told you that, but you've always been one of my best friends. Besides being an uncle,
I've enjoyed every minute of you, though. I'd rather aggravate you than to eat.
And I doubt I would have ever gone back to college if it hadn't have been for Neal Lewis.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But he taught me not to give up. And when I was a kid, I'll say this, I remember him spending sometimes almost to daylight playing games and stuff with me that taught me how to think. You're the only person that can really tell us about World War II.
Well, I don't know about that. I've forgotten most of it.
But can you tell us how you ended up getting drafted in the Army, and you stayed out that summer to gather your crops, didn't you?
Yeah, I stayed out together. I was going to school at Auburn. When I first found out really about World War II, I was going to school at Auburn, and there was 4 of us boys from down here. I had an old car, and there was 4 of us boys from down here that were going to school at Auburn. And back then, the way we went to Auburn was go through Phoenix City.
Yes.
And I lived out there in those barracks at Auburn, next to the football field there. And stayed in there with a bunch of us boys. And that's how I got to Auburn.
You were studying agriculture?
Yeah, I went in agriculture. But I felt like I was more qualified for that than anything else. Because I never did like to study. It showed up a lot of times in my grade too. But at least I got by anyway. My first experience of when I found out about the Army was, see, there were 4 boys, 3 from down here and a boy from New Falls that was going to school at Auburn. And every Friday afternoon, all of us would come home. One of them, I dropped him off at New Falls, and the other 3 of us came home. And I'd pick them up Sunday, and we'd go back to Auburn on first Sunday. And on the day the Jap bombed Pearl Harbor, I guess, we were going back to Auburn, and we always bought gas in Phoenix City because it was cheaper. See, I furnished the car, and they furnished the gas, the other 3 boys. And I was drawing gas. They was in the store buying some candy and stuff like that. And the boy in New Falls' daddy had fixed us a wood box radio and had one leg over. We had a radio to listen to going to Auburn and coming home every weekend.
That was big stuff, right? That was high
well,
class
not
stuff.
many houses around here even had a radio.
Y'all had one in a Model 8.
We thought we was something. Can't you imagine, boy, now I ain't doing that? But that boy, daddy, he just fixed that thing up. We let it play all the way going and coming every day. We went to Auburn. And I was filling up with gas in Phoenix City, and they were in the store. And I heard that the Japs had bombed Pearl Harbor that day. That was my first experience of that. And when they came out, they hadn't heard it, see, in the store. And so we started on to Auburn, and I said, well, I'm going to tell you, boy, son, what's that? I said, I just heard on the radio that the Japs had bombed Pearl Harbor. And that's when I started the war. And I said, I have an idea all 4 of us are going to be called in the service right away. You know, how boys would. I didn't know. Then you hadn't even thought about it. You had to go through and register and all that shit.
Right.
Hell, I figured they'd just have us right in there and service. And I guess they did in a way, but we toughed it along till I just came back home, and I decided I was going to farm the next year. Dropped out of school. Made the worst mistake I ever made, I reckon. But two of us dropped out. I told those boys when we got to Auburn that day, that Sunday, I said, I don't know what you boys are going to do, but I'm going to gather my clothes and I'm going back home. And any one of you that wants to go with me, you're welcome. And Bertram Baker up here came back with me. And the other two boys stayed there and finished college before they ever had to go in the Army. That shows you how smart a person I was. They sure did. That's a bad mistake I made. I made a lot of mistakes over the years, you know, as you look back, but we toughed it out. We all four got back.
You came back here and farmed that year.
Yeah, yeah.
And when did you get a card or something in the mail, or how did they tell you had to serve?
Oh, well, everybody at a certain age had to register for the service. And I went to U-Fall and registered, and, you know, everybody between certain ages had to go register. And so when they every once in a while, they'd take a group, take them to Columbus, go through them and take them in the Army. And I said, well, they're going to get me sooner or later. So I went. They was sending a bus down there to round up all they could and he followed to go, and there was about 30 of us got on that bus and went up to Birmingham, I reckon, somewhere up there, and let them draft us in the Army. And, that's how I got in the Army.
Y'all went up and volunteered. And
well, we were registered, had already registered for the service. Everybody at a certain age had to register.
So did you stay?
I knew they were going to call us sooner or later because they'd gotten almost up to where our group had registered. And so I just went on and went up to Phoenix City and went through the registration, and that's how I got in the Army.
Now, somebody told me a story once about you. And they said
a lot of stories told about me.
They told me that you sat down with Eloise and drew a map. And you showed different farms around, and that represented a map of the world. And when you were writing to her, you would ask her about, like, how's the Roberts place?
Yeah.
And that would actually tell her in code where you were.
Yeah.
And you did.
I couldn't tell her where I was.
Right.
But I had ways of. She knew what island I was on or what things like that.
Right.
She wrote me every day that I was in service.
Every day.
Some days I'd get 30 or 40 letters.
Uh-huh. Oh, they'd come in a batch.
Oh yeah, they come in a batch. And see, I had a way of trying to tell her where I was by the Ain't No Locks name down here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always write her and say, well, hi, Ain't No, something that she'd know what I was talking about. Well, but it'd tell her that things was all right with us. You could tell them that, but they'd cut a lot of that out.
Right.
The letters, but when I was talking about Ain't No Lock, well, they didn't bother that. As long as I talked about Ain't No, I couldn't talk about my folks, but I could talk about my Ain't No down there.
And that would tell Eloise you were fine.
Yeah.
So you outsmarted Army intelligence. You and Elwood. What was it like to go to training? How did that start? Y'all go
Well,
to
I
boot
didn't
camp?
mind the training.
Was it tough or hard
it
on
was
these
tough.
guys?
I learned a whole lot about basic training and how some folks can be so dumb. I do not know.
What do you mean?
John, when we got down to the final basic training, we had to crawl on our bellies, or pull on your back, far from here, the church down there. They lined about 8 of us up in a line with basic training. And they told us what we had. It made us practice on that. Being able to go on your back or on your belly or however you couldn't stand up or the
Right.
bullets would kill you. And the thing that disturbed me the most about basic training, see, me and one more boy from the South was all that was in my outfit in basic training.
So y'all were with a bunch of Yankees.
No, he and I was the only 2 rebels. Everybody else in that barracks come from the Bronx or New York City. And we're in basic training. They would tell us how we had to do. Which, they made you dig a ditch, see how quick you could dig a ditch to get down in it. Or some stuff like that. This boy and I didn't mind, but them boys from New York City had no idea what they were talking about. So they never had been on the dirt.
Right.
But what got me, when we got about down to the basics, about to get through with basic training, that we had to come up with this sliding on your belly or on your back, mostly on your back, because anybody could go on your belly, but it's hard to pull your weight around on your back. And they would put about 8 of us in a line, like going from here across over there, and they'd put us about 8 foot apart, 7, 8 foot apart, and everybody had to go through this thing. And they tell you got to stay flat of your belly or flat of your back, because if you raise your head, you're going to get shot.
They were firing over you.
Yeah. The idea was to make sure you didn't get shot, see? And do you know, I guess I saw 7 or 8 people get shot. Just like that in basic training.
They raised up.
Well, yeah. And I mean, there'd just be a line of us. It's like 6 going down that hall. Of course, that'd be in a straight line, everybody in a straight line. And they had bullets for everybody. And they tell you, don't you raise your head, because you're going to get shot. And they've done that 2 or 3 times when we went out on basic training, learning.
Did it kill them?
Killed them. Hell yeah, that bullet. The damn fool is crazy. I never seen that. That's what really shook me up about being in the Army. Because people didn't follow rules and regulations. They're damn straight up. Oh, God.
They get hit.
Yeah.
Well, all right, so y'all left basic training. Where'd you go? What happened after that?
We didn't get too much training. I went to Spartanburg, South Carolina for my basic training. But I was there only, well, I used to tell you exactly how many days, but, and everybody there was Yankees but me and that boy. And I stayed, see, they had a barracks there at Auburn, And I stayed upstairs and he stayed downstairs. And everything in there but me and him was from the north. Most of them was from the Bronx of New York City. And why in the hell they came to Auburn, excuse my language, but how they came to Auburn, I do not know. But that's where they sent them. And that's where we left from, going to Spartanburg, South Carolina. And why they would stand up knowing they were going to be. They were told 15 times, don't you raise your head up off the ground. You drag yourself to that line, I thought. It'd be far from here across the road out there. You had to drag yourself on.
Panic and just raise up. They panic.
What they did. Two of them was one man between me and them too. I don't know what he did, but every sergeant had 2 men to make sure that they knew what they were supposed to do.
So what happened when y'all were trained? They put y'all on a boat? How does that work? How did it?
We weren't on no boat. We were taking basic training in South Carolina.
Yeah, but when you left there, how did you leave there and go to the Pacific? What?
Well, I went south and let's see, we left Spartanburg and buses and trains and everything, and went down and left. Well, I forgot where we left.
Savannah?
No, we left down here below Mobile.
Pensacola? Gulfport?
Foot on down there.
New Orleans?
About New Orleans, I guess.
That's where they made those landing boats down there.
Yeah, that's where
they had a big
port.
port.
We filled up there, big boat on that time. We picked up folks all the way down going overseas.
What was it like when you got there, or going? How long did it take you to get there?
Where?
To where y'all went? Y'all went to the Pacific, right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was just riding a boat.
I mean, were people scared, worried?
No, it wasn't no need to be worried or scared, but we wasn't scared of nothing. But they had these beds in there that's 5 high, and you had to turn yourself straight out if you didn't get on the first. They just stacked up just like you, 5 high.
Right.
And we slept on that. She slept in your clothes most of the time on that boat. But we run out of food on that boat.
What do you?
Yeah.
I know how you ran out of food.
Yeah. We had to pull in somewhere over there and get some more food. See, this was all new back then, and they didn't know nothing about war. But they learned a lot quick. Yeah, I could tell you how many days at one time before I was drafted and before I went overseas. It was a very short time. You see, I was married then.
Right.
I had already married. She stayed here with my aunt and uncle and grandmama. We went through some tough times over there in them islands.
What was that like? What can you share about?
Well,
y'all had to storm an island, or?
There's just so many things about what we ran into that you wouldn't have believed. We wound up protecting those islands where we went, see. But the Japs was hard to whip.
Did you have to fight them on every island, or how?
Yeah. We had to whip them on every island. They were there first, and we went in. We would go in and we whipped them. But what they'd do, them devils would go out into these woods, and they'd live 6 months in them woods. You didn't get rid of them quick. They could live on nothing. Because it had to.
What was the hardest thing in that? What were the hardest things that y'all had to figure out how to solve or face?
Well, having to fight them hand to hand and stuff like that. We had that about 3 times on those islands. They wasn't easy to whip, I'll tell you that. But the way they did things is what shook you up.
What you mean?
When we got in the Philippines over there, they would take and kill all the little boys.
The Japanese would?
Yeah, they had a bayonet on the end of all of them had bayonets on the end of their rifle, and they'd take little boys and throw them up in the air and let them come down on that bayonet. They killed all the little boys they could find. Didn't bother the girls. But they,
why would they do that? What would be the purpose of that?
Well, they knew they could handle the girl, but they couldn't handle the boy. He'd get grown, see, and fight them back. We'd fight them back then, but that was just way of getting rid of the boys. But they didn't bother the little girl babies. They killed every boy baby they found. In the Philippines. See, our base was close to Clark Field there, which was, what I was in most of the time I was in the service was a replacement depot, they called it. We would go into they'd send all the troops to us. We'd be down to 10,000, 15,000 troops today. And a week from now, we may have 25, 30,000 people out on that base. But a new group coming in every week from the United States. And we lose a lot of, see, back in those islands, we had mostly hand-to-hand combat. We didn't have near as much of this shooting way off because there wasn't nothing but water around them islands. You had to get right with them to kill them, and they had to get right with you to kill them. It was just one of them things. My brother that was older than me, when we got to the Philippines, he went AWOL. He'd been there. He had fought 4 times more than I had, because he was in there a year ahead of me. He was a ground corps in the signal and in the army, and that's all they did was have their shotgun with them around the clock.
Right. And
he'd gotten into the Philippines before I did. He'd been there and fought all the way down in the Japs, so they took them over. When we got that, we were in good shape then, see. But we landed there in the town and stayed out the edge of the town down there about 2 or 3 weeks. We'd been there, and they moved us up next to Clark Field. And I got in there with my group about midnight, and we went. We stayed there 2 or 3 days, and I hadn't seen him, but he had fought all over the island, 10 times more than I did, because I was with this replacement depot, see. And they just run the Japs out of the woods and everywhere. And when he found out that I was on that island, I got to send him a card, and he got it, and he took off, and he was, I guess he was 100 and something miles up from me, where I was moved that day. I had gotten my bags and went to bed that night, about 1 o'clock, and before daylight that morning, I guess at 3 o'clock, 3:30. Somebody was in there shaking me off my cot. And hell, I hadn't had no sleep. I thought I was sleeping pretty good. And when they got me awake, See, they had no electricity or nothing. You just had those barracks. There's no light or nothing. And there's somebody here wants to see you, so the fella told me. I said, what they want with me? He said, I don't know, but he wants to see you. And come to find out, this boy that had delivered me up there that day in a weapons carrier was going back to New Maya to bring another group up. They were traveling around the clock. We were trying to get all our crew up to Clark Field, see about Clark Field. There was just a fence between where our Central Platinum Depot was and Clark Field. Well, this my brother had caught a ride with this guy going back 90 miles during the night. And going down there, he got down there and he told him, and Ree had two more boys with him. And the three of them caught a ride with that guy on the weapons carrier going back down to where they tore up the city. And the guy was telling the driver, they were talking about, he was a Lewis, you know, and he introduced his other boy, and he said, you know Neal Lewis? He said, you mean Neal Lewis? Now this was my brother, see,
right,
that I had to see. And he said, yeah, I know him. He said, I just brought him up here to New Maya this morning. He said, you did? He said, well, put me out. I'm going to go back up there. Well, he hitchhiked back up there and see. He just backed off of the fighting, and him and them 2 or 3 boys come up there. And the guy picked all of them up, taking them down to the town. And they're coming there waking me up at 5 o'clock in the damn morning. No light, nothing. I heard Reed's voice, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. But I finally got awake, and that boy was telling me that it took me up there. He said, I've got your brother here, and he wants to see you. I said, you lying like a hound dog, you know. And then Reed come over and shoot me. And that's how I got to see my brother. He said him and those 3 boys, they just took off when they walked. And then I took him to see I went to see my colonel as soon as I got my clothes on, and he got to the office and told him, I said, Colonel, I've been a pretty good soldier now. You've known me ever since I've been here, but I'm fixing to get a pass. See, he done had rules, nobody could get a pass. Everything was all messed up, fixed up. I said, so I tell you, I'm fixing to go AWOL, and you can do with me whatever you want to, but my brother's outside. I'm going to bring him in there and let you see him in a minute. And he had a beard that hell it would run out him.
Your brother?
Yeah. I wouldn't have known him if I'd have seen him. And he told him, he said, yes, he said, we've been off over here a long time, both of us, and this is the first time we've seen one another. And I told him, I said, Colonel, you do with me when I get back whatever you got to do, because I'm going to go with him and them boys down here in the town, because they fought all through there, and they know where the places to go are, and I have no idea. And I'm going to go with them, and we're going to take about a week and a half or 2 weeks. He says, get your ass out that door, boy. That's the very words he used. And I sure did appreciate that, but we had a good time. I enjoyed my brother and his boys that he brought with him. But they still was fighting all over that island. And that's where I got to see them. Throw these baby boys up in the air and let them come down on that bayonet. Oh, that just got me. They didn't bother the little girls like that, but they just got rid of all the boys.
Did you fight with rifles mostly?
Yeah.
So
yes,
is it like a jungle environment or a thick wood
bottom? No, it could be open just like this. See, we sat out there and had mess cans and everything for your food. And we cooked and everything outside.
And did they give up easily, or what was it like? I mean,
No,
somebody that never been there, how would they imagine it?
They'd hide if they could. You had to shoot them to kill them. They had to shoot us to kill us. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You learn to hit the dirt quick.
You told me one time that y'all said and I guess some of the worst of the fighting, that you'd wear barrels out. They get so hot shooting. Is that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can you talk about that, or what that was like?
Well, it's just your gun would get so hot
from shooting so many times.
Yeah. You shoot where you heard a noise out there. You might not see the person, but you don't know where you hit anybody or not. See, but you shot where that noise was. You're pretty close to it. But it's either that or get shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you meet any of them when they gave up, became prisoners?
Didn't meet them. I killed that one I could. And they did too.
Right. What was it? Did you lose many people in your group over the course of the war? Or?
Well, see, like I say, I was with this replacement depot. And what we did, we were the headquarters for the troops for the South Pacific. And they'd send, from the United States, they'd send a boatload of people over to our base. And they had every kind of job opportunities and mixed up with this crowd of folks. And when they got there, they would have everybody to come down and register, and you give them your life history and everything. And we had a group of people, all they did was go through those records. And if they needed a person to do this particular type of work, they went through that list, went up there to the PX and called him, and he was assigned to that job. And this went on for days and days and days and days. And see, I wasn't out there fighting every day like a lot of those guys were. See,
right.
My job was to really to have electricity for the base. That was my responsibility. I had me a crew of about 10 people, and we'd work. Like we came in here, put in a base. We'd stay here maybe 4 months, 6 months, and we had to get everything for 2,000 people to live in. Things for them to do it. And we just had these old canvas bags, to hold 6 people. We had to get all of their names in that bag. Their name was on the outside of the cloth, so you had to hunt. If you was hunting somebody, you had to hunt where they were.
So how did y'all find out the war was over? Was it one day? How did that happen?
We had gotten on up after, it's been so long ago, John, can't remember all the details, but we had gotten up there, and we were fixing to go into when we ended the war.
Okinawa.
So we were fixing to go.
Indonesia, New Guinea.
Who would we fight?
You're about to go into Japan and invade Japan.
We were fixing to go into Japan. Had already got our stuff packed up, and if it had been 3 days, we would have been on our way to Japan. But they called and said that the war was over. We just sat down and waited till they come and got us to. It didn't take long to get us on that boat and send us home. Boy, you talk about some proud folk. That's how we found out about it.
What did you learn from that about the country when you came back?
What, this country?
Yeah. What would you
Like
say?
I said, well, we didn't know. See, we went for 2 years, wouldn't see nothing belong to us. We was always fighting over there. If we made stuff, you'd be surprised how much stuff. See, we'd have, they would send a boatload of people over there this week. Say this was our base. And we had enough room that we could put them. And along with that, we had a group that didn't do nothing but records. That's, man, they had a crowd doing that job. I'm glad I didn't have it. But see, that fella kept up with whatever person that was on that base could do and what his specs were. That was his job. And I had the communications put in our own switchboards and stuff like that. And I stayed on the telephone with the colonel half of the time hunting where these people were, see. And when we put somebody in a base, we had to record who was in that base. And then we'd have a string just up down the wall with everybody that's on that base.
So when you got back home, you told me one time about how the GI Bill was so important in building up agriculture, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about that? Or?
Well, what all it was when I got back home, I started back to farming. But I decided right then that wasn't for me. I was going to college.
Why? Why did you decide that?
Well, I got it free.
For the GI Bill?
Yeah, for the GI Bill. I probably wouldn't have been able to go without the GI Bill. But man, I said when I was in there overseas being shot at and stuff like that, man, if I ever get back home, I'm gonna go get me an education somewhere. And I meant that thing. And I'm not sorry I did. See, that's what the trouble I had with Byron. See, Byron wasn't gonna go around like this.
He didn't understand.
We had it over and under, but we finally got it convinced.
How important was that GI Bill to make it
agriculture? If I hadn't had the GI Bill, I probably would have never gone to college. I couldn't afford it.
When you got out of college, you started working with these farmers, right?
Yeah, I got a job. That was my job. Because, see, there's a lot of boys that kept going in the service even years after I got out of the service. And see, when I got my degree and working with people in agriculture, part of my job was, at that time, they were still drafting people for the Army, see. And most of my work was with families that had their kids to go in the service, just like I went in. And I came out and got my degree and then got a job to deal with other young people that was going in the service, or had gone in the service. And see, back then, I got my GI Bill going to college. And see, a lot of folks came back home and wanted to farm.
Right.
See, and they could get the same amount of money that I got to go to college. Farm.
What did they do with that? Buy equipment, livestock, get started,
well, what?
And they had training. What?
See, it was different for everybody. The biggest problem I had with it was you go out here in most any of these counties and there's always houses at the end of a road. You can't got to go to that house, and that's as far as you can go. And they had old timers that was trying to keep their farm going while the 2 or 3 boys was in the service. And they had stayed there and helped Daddy all their life till they had to go in the service. Well, they had certain rules and regulations that they was going back to the farm that they had to follow. And my job was to make sure they followed those regulations. And that what I caught the most heck from was these dads trying to have the 2 or 3 boys, and it always helped, see, farming. But they didn't have enough land for all of them to make a living on. Right. But Daddy had never understood that until I reckon he died never understanding that. Right. And I caught more flack from daddies. I just tell them, I said, well, Mr. So-and-so, you don't have enough land for all 3 or all 4 of y'all to make a living on. I said, you can't, you decide who you want to stay here and run this farm. Right. Sometimes it'd be 2 of them could stay. But most of the time, they always had one. If they just had one, it was no problem. Right. But if they had over one, in most cases, they didn't have enough land for, and that's where I caught more flack than any other one thing from daddies, because I wouldn't get them all on the 3 on the GI Bill. Right.
How much land did it take back then to make
took enough to
go of it?
Back when I started fooling with the farm, 40 acres, as low as 25 acres.
If you had a mule and implements,
yeah,
and 40 acres of
it don't matter if they had a tractor,
you could make a living.
Back then they did. Yeah, I grew up making a living on 35 acres.
Well, what the hell happened?
Huh?
What happened? How did we get to no farmers? Well, I mean, you trained all these farmers.
No, those I didn't train all of them.
How did that work? Because they got training, didn't they?
Yeah.
Classes?
No. The ones that stayed at the farm got the training, but the others couldn't. See, they didn't have enough land for 3 of them to farm there with their daddy.
Right.
You see.
They went to town and got trades, jobs.
Daddy didn't want them to go. He wanted it like it was before they went in the army, but it couldn't be that way. See. And that's why I didn't catch too much from the boys. It was from the daddies that I caught the hell from.
They just didn't get it.
No, he thought he wanted it back like it was, but he didn't have enough land for it to go back like it was.
How did that group change things when they started farming and taking over that generation?
Well, they started buying equipment,
tractors, and
yeah.
How did that? What was that like?
There wasn't a half a dozen tractors in this community. Nowhere. Before I went in the service.
No, but didn't you want one of the first ones around Edgefield to buy a tractor?
No.
Who was the first?
I don't know. I bought one because I had the money to buy one, the little John Deere.
When was this, after World War II?
No,
before?
Before I went into service. See, I farmed all this down here back here with a mule.
Were there many tractors around when you bought yours?
Very few.
What did these guys do? They grew up, these are the people that were like Colin, that grew up and farmed and made a living. And what was that like? Describe that. I mean,
well, it was a great, if they got the GI Bill, they give them enough to help them out, money-wise. See, I had enough money to go through college on. And they could do the same thing. They could get just as much as I got if they qualified for farming. But see, 3 people can't go down here and farm this patch from here to the pond down there. See?
Right.
And that old man couldn't understand that. He never did. He had, man, that old man that's cussed me. Woo. They didn't come to my house.
And you went around the state, the
Yeah.
South?
Yeah.
What? So these guys are the guys that built Alabama agriculture, really, after the war, with tractors and modern stuff, training.
Well, yeah, I'd say that's when they started really getting tractors. After World War II.
Peanuts, and they started growing peanuts. And
Yeah.
getting
No,
away
they'd
from-
always grow. See, now I used to have 25 acres was considered a crop for any family, man and his wife, his children. That was considered a crop that year.
And what would that be? Cotton and
Whatever he wanted to plant, cotton, peanuts, corn, cows, hogs, he had it all. See, in other words, they got the same thing that they had before they went in the army, most of them. They bought more tractors when they got out.
why do we not have farmers? Your opinion? What happened? Or why did we lose agriculture? Because like when I was, small, we'd come over here and dove hunt and everything. That was from here to Abbeville or here to Eufaula. There were a dozen or more farmers, or more, 20 families.
That was the only way they could make a living back then.
Why is that gone?
Well, we got too much money.
What do you mean by that?
Everybody. There ain't nobody hurting for money in this country right now. You know that.
I don't know
The
about
government's
that.
gonna give you some money.
You saying if they don't work, government hand it to
Oh
them?
yeah.
So
They
back
did
then,
that.
they wasn't they'd starve to death if you
couldn't
didn't
do
work.
that back then. The government couldn't afford to do it back then. There were very few people that.
That's all borrowed money now.
Huh?
That's all borrowed money.
Yeah. Today it is.
That's gonna run out. It has
already
run out.
run out.
Yeah.
It's already
So,
run out.
what? I mean, the small family farm. In your opinion, how important was that for us to
The
have that?
most important thing I ever saw. But it outgrew itself.
How did? What do you mean
Well,
by that?
folks quit going out here and plant 25 acres for a crop. They plant 125 acres. See what? If they lived on 25 acres, they plant 125 acres, they make more, $100 more dollars.
And would they borrow money to do that?
Oh yeah.
So that's how a lot of them got in trouble.
Yeah, overboard. I didn't set the rules on what they could have. The government set them darn rules. I didn't have nothing to do with the setting the rules. Like them 3 men wanted to farm with the daddy like they did before the war. I didn't have anything to do with setting how many acres they had to have. The government did that. But I had to enforce it if I put the boy on the GI Bill. I had to enforce it. That's why I got so much custody.
What would you do to bring, if it was up to you, if you were in control, what would you do to bring farms and agriculture back? What do you think it's coming back one day, or is
Not like it used to be, no. I don't think that'll ever come back to this country.
do you think it's going to collapse though, and people are going to have to grow their own food?
Yeah, I think down the line somewhere, if we don't do something with this president we got, he's running this country. There ain't no doubt in my mind that he's already ruined this country. And when I first heard him speak, I thought that was the best speaker I'd ever heard.
Yeah, I did too.
But he's proven me wrong. I got out of the Democrat Party because of it.
But young people today have no idea where food comes from.
No, sir. No, sir. You know why? Because mom and dad always had the money to buy it. Back in my day, they didn't have the money to buy it.
They grow it, can't
Yeah.
preserve
we grew
it.
what we ate.
So you were tied directly to the land.
Yeah. See, you got folks now that owns land that don't even know how to plant a garden.
That seems crazy.
And hell, used to 99% of the people could plant a garden. But
Cool.
then, I bet you could, even including the blacks, you could go up and down this road and pick out 100 people, any way you want to do it, and half of them wouldn't know how to even start a garden.
But if you did that 50 years ago, they'd know how to kill a hog, they'd know how to smoke meat, they'd know how to
kill a cow,
can, all that stuff.
Yeah, they knew all that stuff. And I honestly think we're going to get back to that point with that. I don't think it will in my lifetime, but you young dudes, you may see that same thing happen.
Well, you told me since I was in high school that, and you said you've always predicted there'd be a day when people will be hungry in this country, unless you know how to do that. Unless you know how to grow your own stuff and raise livestock.
They're going to be hungry.
I hope you're wrong.
I do too. I hope the heck I'm wrong. But I can't see it.
I don't either.
It's going to happen.
All of that farming out west, like in North Texas and California and Arizona, is all dependent on money and huge. If that all collapses, there will be no food in the grocery stores.
John, you can go from here to Eufaula and stop at every house on the side of the road. And half of the people, or more than half of the people that you stop, wouldn't even know how to grow a garden.
I believe that. Yeah. And half
they
of those
got the money to buy. But the problem is we're going to soon not have nobody to grow it. That's when time is going to get there.
What do you mean by that? People don't.
Oh,
the knowledge.
They don't have the knowledge to grow it. Right now, half of them that you stop from here to Eufaula wouldn't know how to grow a garden.
That's scary.
And well, we got more money to handle now, and they don't have to have a garden. They can buy what they want.
Well, how would you change that? Would you teach that in school, like in an ag program?
Well, no, I don't know. That's something the government's got to do.
They don't do anything until there's a
No,
problem.
but they're going to have to do something one day for long. I don't think I'll live to see it, but you will. You'll see it. And you better be prepared for it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I done learned how to can, and I got a little garden.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm learning.
Yeah,
I got a lot to learn, but
ain't many folk doing that though.
I got some tomato plants that are originally from seeds I got from Rufus. I learned how to put them in a Ziploc bag and put them up every year. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning. You know.
Yeah, but there ain't many folks learning, John.
That's kind of scary. So, if you had one lesson to tell people about what happened during World War II, in your experience, what would you tell them? What would you warn them? If you could, the people that, you know, when me and you are dead and gone, our family members, Robin's kids and grandkids, what would you tell them that you learned and that they need to know about an experience like that?
Well, I can tell them what I experienced, just like I told you.
What advice would you give them in making decisions about stuff like that?
They got to decide whether you're going to learn to grow your food or you're going to do without food. As long as they know how to grow and food, they'll survive. But the world of people are not going to ever learn. There may be one in a family that will learn to do it, but the rest of the family, well, he got plenty, I'll eat his. And then I was schooled in ag. I used to preach this to the folks at Auburn University. You better make sure everybody in this country knows how to make a living on the farm.
And grow their own food and stuff.
Yeah. I said, whether they eat it or not don't make no damn difference. But half of the folks today, John, don't even know how to plant a damn plant. Half of the people in this country today could no more go out here and plant a plant than they can fly. Now you think I'm joking,
no.
but I know too many families that don't know how to do it.
We'll go back to the war just a minute. We'll come back another day and finish, but I wanted to ask you, when the country gets in trouble and it's attacked and there's a war, what is your advice to young people? They need to go and fight for it? What would be
If they don't fight for it, they're going to lose this country.
So young people have got to be willing to do like y'all did.
You better know it. If they
whatever
don't,
the fight, sacrifice.
Old folks like me can't do nothing.
So they got to walk out that door and go be willing to fight for this country.
That's exactly right.
And that's
they're going to lose this country.
Neal Lewis,
huh?
thank you for your service.
Well, no, that's facts of life.
No.
As I see it,
Hey.